Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be taking a look through and cleaning up my small collection of Hutchinson's Free Victory Gift for the Forces paperbacks. So I've got just over a dozen of these incredibly rare paperbacks, and they're in not the best of shape, so they're going to take a little bit of work to get them back to being as good as well they possibly can, because they are very, very rare. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so these are, well, they're incredibly scarce. These were Services Editions, distributed by the Services Central Book Depot, but they're published by Hutchinson. And long before the days of Free World Book Day, in the early 2010s and teens, towards the tail end of the war, Hutchinson managed to give away, we think, about 30 titles. 1 million copies, all given away to to whoever wanted them, basically, as victory editions. Now this one isn't actually too bad condition wise. I'm just flicking through it here, and yeah, apart from a little bit of pencil inside, I'm going to be very, very gentle with these, of course, because, as I said, they are very, very scarce. There is no known complete set, and the Paperback Revolution website, which focuses on pre-war paperbacks and is very, very detailed, the most detail you can find online about Services Editions in particular. It's run by a chap called Al, and he has put together what information he's known. So some of these books, and we'll see these, they seem to be in three different colors. Like there's a blue one, there's red colored ones, but some books are available in both sort of different colored covers, which is really weird. There is also thought that perhaps Hutchinson themselves were just binding up. They were putting new jackets on books that they had in stock already. But I would debunk that theory in that I've got early editions of particular books, like a Dennis Wheatley, for example. I've got the Hutchinson edition from this period, and it's different. So only by the numbering inside, mind you. So it could still be that Hutchinson just pulled the copies that were around then, but it's really difficult to tell. They do all seem to have this advert on the back for the Hutchinson Universal Book Club, which in itself, those books are quite scarce. But on that particular one, apart from that little bit of pencil there actually is nothing else to do on that one. So that's as good as it's going to get. Teamwork. Now this one's missing the back cover. So we can't do a lot about that. There is also got a little bit of fraying there. Rusty staples. Now, the thing is about these books, they are so scarce that we want to preserve them in any condition, because in some cases there may only be the one copy in existence, and that's not a joke, believe it or not. And obviously there's others out there, but try finding them. So Al on the Paperback Revolution website, once again, there's nothing else we can do to that one. He says that in 25 years of collecting Services Editions, he's only found 20, which is quite interesting. Now this one, once again, it's got no back cover, but at least we'll be able to re-glue the spine back into one piece with a bit of delicate touch there. As I said, once we've done these, I am actually going to bag these as well, because they just need that extra level of protection. So there's a few turned over corners, so we're going to get those in a sec. Got a 5p inside there, so we'll get this one out. It says it's from the Wild West Library, this one. Alright, any more corners to do there? a few odd ones. I mean, this one really has been through the wars, hasn't it, this one? But I haven't got another copy. It's the only one. Some of these... so what happened, Al, who runs the Paperback Revolution website, he had the best collection of Services Editions in existence, to my knowledge. And in December of 2024, he donated them to the Imperial War Museum. So it was not every Services Edition that we know to exist. The Imperial War Museum themselves are willing to take extras. There's a couple here that weren't included in that collection, I believe. But it included a massive run of Penguin Forces Book Club, which was like, they're my top ones to collect. But and Prisoner of War issues as well. I mean, just amazing, really. But they've gone to the museum now to be kept for the nation, which is fantastic. A very, very generous gesture from Al, particularly considering the value of the Penguin Forces Book Club books nowadays. Regularly, they're sort of hitting, £50 to £200 a book online now. I mean, I don't think I'd ever pay that sort of money for them, but certainly they're very collectible. Unlike these, which I think are scarce and they are rare, but I don't think you're going to be seeing mega money be paid for them. Although there are a couple of more well-known authors, people like Dennis Wheatley, for example, of which we've got one to look at in a minute. So that's the corners done as best as possible. But we need to sort out this spine here, don't we? So what I'm going to do, I'll use these other books here as a bit of a table, as it were. Now, in actual fact, it's probably better doing it in reverse, like that. So the first bit we're going to need to do is just under this bit here, and fold that out. So I'm just using a little flathead screwdriver. So that's what we want to do, but we need to get some glue in there. So the glue that I'll use, just in case you've never seen it, is Pinflair Bookbinders glue. And this is one that you can get off Amazon. It is about £8 to £9 a bottle. So it's not cheap, but it does last a long time, because you don't need loads of it. And what I like about this one is that when you've glued the piece in question, over time it dries clear. So it actually, unlike say like Pritt Stick, which almost leaves like a bit of a gooey residue, this stuff dries totally clear, which is very cool. You can get fairly accurate with it. As I said, I use this little screwdriver here just to tease it in to little holes, There we are. Now, I'd say this is going to be the next bit to get done. And that does go all the way to the end, so we know where to apply the glue. Sorry, I'm a little bit husky today. I am recovering from a cold and a terrible cough. Never much fun at this time of year. There we are. And that bit also needs to be re-glued. I don't want to go crazy with the glue, but you've got to put enough on for it to actually do the job. There we are. And then this very last bit here, so that's the bit of the cover. Now, it does actually come all the way back to the top. Look at that, pretty much. So most of the spine was there. It's just the back cover's disappeared. And, well, we know the back cover is just an advert for the Universal Book Club. So it's not like it's anything too special. Although, who can tell on these? There's so little information. As I said, everything I know about these has come from the Vintage Paperback Revolution, website. It's what Al's been able to piece together over the years. And obviously, because I've got a couple of bits now which weren't previously discovered from my recent acquisitions, I've been sharing all that information. So it's all going back to like a central source, as it were. But I've still yet to find any books that we didn't know actually existed as services editions. So the ones that Al was missing of these from his collection, although I've got a couple of them, there was none that I've like, just didn't know that they existed to begin with, you know. Now, having a closer look at this at a different angle. That's definitely much better than it was, but we're never going to get it, perfect. It's just not going to be, it's just not possible with this sort of book. It's just too far gone. But we've not done bad there. I mean, you can clearly see the spine when you think what that was like beforehand. The time we get that flattened down in a nice paperback bag, that will actually be almost as good as we're ever likely to get that one. So we'll slide him over there. So here is one of the Dennis Wheatleys, Contraband, and seems to be a very popular title from back in the day. This one has still got its back cover, but a little bit of gluing required again on the spine. Just check for any turned over corners. Check at the top and at the bottom. So there are a few here, sadly. So the general consensus is that these books were given away. I said they were free. It was a massive publicity, exercise for Hutchinson, and they got their advert on the back for the Universal Book Club. So there was a bit of promotion there, and they were actually called Hutchinson's Free Victory Gift for the Forces. This one has got a little £1.25 in, so we'll get rid of that. So, quoting Al from his website, he says, "I've never been able to find any records of what was given away or exactly how, so I can only judge from the evidence of the books themselves, and they're not easy to find. You wouldn't believe how easy it seems to be to make 1 million books disappear." That is just the very nature of these services editions, isn't it? It says, "In more than 25 years, I've found fewer than 20 copies and heard or seen reports of a handful of others to make up a total list of 30 books, although there may well be more." Absolutely mad, isn't it? It says, "I suspect there may be more out there to be found, but it's certainly possible that of the original 1 million books, no more than a few hundred now remain. They're printed on poor wartime paper, which we're looking at now, and were probably sent all around the world to some pretty inhospitable environments, and the vast majority have just been thrown away." So what we are looking at here very much is some real rare survivors of a time when paper was a scarce commodity, books were a rare commodity themselves, and consequently, even though these were given away, they just are not plentiful. Until I picked up the collection from Eric Gadd's collection, so that's where all of these came from, I'd never ever come across a single one of these. I've got Hutchinson books from the same period, but not these particular services editions. I'd never even seen them before. They are epically rare, I think, is the way to describe them. Possibly the rarest service editions of all. But who can tell, you know, 1 million books, even spread over 30 titles. You would think more would have survived, but they just don't seem to have for some unknown reason. I think possibly maybe a lot of non-bookie people read them. I mean, who knows, you know. Something for nothing, something for free. It's impossible to tell, really, isn't it, why they're so scarce today, but they are. So definitely worth picking up if you ever see any in any condition. The problem is, if this sort of thing was, I don't know, handed in at a charity shop, they just wouldn't know what they were looking at. They would just say, oh, it's an old paperback, and they'd end up in the bin to be gone for good. You know, literally it would be gone for good. So that is sort of what we're up against sometimes. It is a matter of preservation. But I am very pleased to have this Dennis Wheatley one in particular, since he's an author. I wouldn't say I seriously collect him, but I've got a fair bit. And when I was growing up as a youngster, my dad introduced me not to the black magic stuff, which was very popular in the 70s, but to some of his other things. And there was one in particular, it's an anthology. It's called Gunmen, Gallants and Ghosts. And it's the Dennis Wheatley book I recommend anyone who wants to try it. Just try that. It's got a bit of everything in it. And I found it eminently readable. But yeah, this seemed to be a very popular Wheatley of the period. And that is, once again, as good as we're going to get, that one. I can't help but feel they'll be better protected once we've got them in a comic bag. Now, this is actually quite a thick book. Frank Swinnerton, the George, has a good page count on this one. And I guess because of that, it's a little bit more robust. It seems to have survived in better nick, this one. But this is one of those instances. Look, I've got it in red, and I've got one with a grey cover. What is going on there? It's a real mystery. That one inside, actually, that looks to me like it says £12, but I don't think that's right. I think it might be £1.25, because there was one of the earlier ones that was also priced at £1.25. So I don't think that's £12. As to valuing these, I think it's very, very difficult. I would imagine the Dennis Wheatley, because he is still a collected author, although nothing like what he used to be, I would imagine that one's probably £15 to £20, something like that. Although these books are incredibly rare and scarce, how many people are actually, you know, collecting them per se? Probably not many. But I'm so fascinated with service editions. I'd certainly like to get some blanks, but, you know, as I said, I don't think they're actually worth a lot of money. They're just scarce books. Right. And that's often the way with most services editions, in actual fact. The only ones that fetch the big money are the Penguins. And obviously some of the Collins White Circle ones of particularly sort of collectible authors, people like Agatha Christie and things like that. You can imagine those would go for a lot for the collectors of those particular authors, you know. There we are. Trying to get this back as good as possible. Certainly not easy. There we are. And then we've got the same book again in grey form. Very, very somber. No back cover on this one. Once again, some spine coming away. You can sort of see why I had to do these almost as a standalone video, just because of the time taken just to do a dozen books. It's not going to be a quick fix, this, but hopefully by giving them their own sort of series, their own video, as it were, it makes you aware of it. If you ever come across one of these, you know you've got something very, very scarce indeed. and you'll make sure it's saved for the sake of the nation. And obviously, if it's one that you don't see here and you want to send it to me, well, just give me a shout. And you know I shall be looking after it. This one's got a pound inside. This one's got a few stamps in as well. So what does this one say? Army Welfare Services Library. That's sort of typical of an army book or a services book. There's another one as well that I can't quite see. But yeah, the Army Welfare Service Library. That's quite a nice little thing to have. And I love old stamps like that. Absolutely love them. Yeah, we'll do the spine in a minute. Let's see if there's anything at the bottom here. Yeah, a couple of turned over pages again. Yeah, in America it was so much easier. You have the Armed Services Editions, the little oblong ones, which themselves are very collectible. Some more than others, of course, certain titles. And they've been well documented, but the British ones is so much more haphazard, you know. There we are. Right, we've got to get this spine sorted. Yes, I did suspect that we'd have a bit of gluing to do today. But it's okay, we can do it. Interesting how so many of them are missing their back covers. Evidently they were very, very loose, which is actually typical of Hutchinson books of the period. They're often like that, you know. There is a little bit of the back cover there. It survived. That appears to have already been glued down, but it wasn't by me. Someone else has already glued that historically. And they also glued the bottom bit. So this has actually been repaired before, believe it or not. It wasn't by me, so maybe it was Eric, the original owner of these. I think that little flap there, I'm just going to glue it underneath simply because it's just going to come off else. That's the one and only remnant of the back cover. There we are, once again, a rare survivor. As good as we're going to get it. Now this one, well, this has been rebound into hardback. This is typical of the what happened during the war. You know, they've got a new spine on it because the book had literally come to bits and it's been trimmed. So obviously I don't want to get rid of this one, but it is a curiosity nonetheless, you know. But it is a homemade one. It's been just bound up to give it that little bit extra life. But there's actually no other markings in it at all. It's actually done a really good job of keeping the book complete. So there you go. So this is about halfway through. Right, so This one is covered in tape. Look at the state of it. And this is one of those rare occasions where I think if I was to attempt to take the tape off, it's just going to make it worse. It doesn't appear as if it's really like brittle or anything, you know. I mean, blimey, all right. This really is looking the worse for wear. I mean, blimey. Just trying to get that bit of the cover put back. Well, yeah. There's not a great deal you can do when a book is in this sort of state. I mean, there really isn't. You just have to grin and bear it. It's pointless trying to take that tape off. It'll just make it worse. So we just got to live with this. I'll go through these corners here. Torn page as well. But as I said, in virtually any condition, I would take these, just because we don't know how many are out there. Very, very, very few, I think, you know, of certain ones in this series. Very, very thin, pulpy sort of paper. Doesn't feel very nice in the hand. But during the war, you would have been glad to have read anything, in all honesty. So what does this here say? Number A6, then number 197. This one's actually got 22nd of November 45. It's almost like it's been in and out of a library of some sort, and in there was maybe a borrowing sheet. Blimey, I mean, just don't know what to even say about that, except to say I think quite the rarity, but literally in appalling state. But we'll save it for the nation. This one appears on first glance much better, actually. Yeah, much better condition. Okay, it's got a little 40p. Lovely stamp at the bottom here. Look at this. I've seen this one before, but look, Royal Naval War Libraries. Look at that. That is very, very cool. So this would have been sent to some form of Royal Navy library. May have been a ship's library. Although often, if it was, it would have the name of the ship on it. It may have just been a generic, like, travelling library just for the Navy, maybe. But that's where it's been. It's in nice condition. Really, really nice condition, that one. Just a tiny slither of glue required just in there. To stop that getting any worse. There we are. That's a pretty nice copy of that one. Amazing Spectacles. That looks like a V in pencil there. Missing the bottom of the spine. It's just gone completely. But it has got the back cover. Nothing on the inside. Pretty nice copy. Yeah, nothing to do on that. As it's just missing the bottom of the spine, which is gone. There's nothing to reglue. Crime at Crooked Gables. Arthur Plummer. It's again quite a nice copy. Quite a thin book as well. A little bit of pencil there at the back, which we'll get out. And a little bit there as well. Very, very faint. Lovely. That's cleaned up quite nicely, that one. Right, Catherine Tennant. Last orders, please. Once again, it seems to have a pretty nice spine on it. Back cover is intact. First flick through seems okay. Bit grubby, I suppose. But really, I mean, that's not bad at all. Yeah, just a little bit grubby, but else absolutely fine with that one. And the last one, before we go on to the next stage, is this, Noel Godber. Keep It Dark. Little £2 inside there, which we shall get shot of. Not too bad at all, that one. A tiny bit of gluing required. Not a lot, but a little. So just a tiny bit under there, I think. And when we are just talking literally a spot. There we are. Now at the bottom of the spine, the thing is it's already been re-glued. This bit here has been re-glued. This has just come away, you know? And I guess this is how the back covers would come off eventually. But if we've got that in a bag, that'll just keep that together. So we don't really need to glue anything there. So that's it on the gluing and repairing side of things. We do, however, have to brush the tops of the books. Now for that, usually I do use this shoe brush here, and I have cleaned it as best I can, but we have to be quite careful with this. Now because the books are not a uniform size per se, what we need to do is drop one level like that, so all the ones on the bottom there are now at the correct height. You see, they're all together. And if we do a few at a time rather than one book individually, it's much easier to clean the edges and get the dust off, which is all we're looking to do. So that's done those. Now those are all level like that. Obviously it's usually the top edge which gets the most dust. So this is usually the worst bit. So there we are, that's got all the edges cleaned as good as we can as well. So those ones are literally ready to be bagged. Now, the hardback one, I am going to do completely separate. It doesn't need to be in with the others. It's a completely small size. That's done. Then the rest of them I shall do in a group of 3 and a group of 4. So this is the group of 3. Now the really beaten up one I'm going to stick in the middle, like so. I'll do the bottom bit first. Now if you enjoy these sort of repair videos, I do have a dedicated channel where I stick out a repair and cleaning video of old books literally once a week. I've been doing it for a few years now, and I've always seemed to have got new stuff coming through my hands. So for that reason, chances are you might enjoy it. So go over and check out the other channel if you never have. I'll put a link to it at the end, of course. But you can see stuff that comes in through my hands. Not always stuff that I'm keeping. Sometimes it's just stuff I'm moving on. But even stuff that I sell, I like to put it through this process where I clean it and get it looking basically as good as possible. Right, here we go then. So the last little batch here to be brushed, and then we're going to get these bagged up as well. They weren't as dirty as I thought they might be, edgewise. I've seen far worse, you know. Usually pre-war, to be honest, rather than wartime or post. There we are. Right, last stage. Let's get these all bagged. Okay, so the paperback bags I use are these ones. The brand is called BCW. These are available on Amazon, although often they run out. So I tend to get mine from a book dealer called Dorset Bob. At least that's his nickname. It's Mr. Book 451 at outlook.com. And Bob sells these for $9.95 for 100 bags. And postage up to 200 bags is £2 in the UK, which isn't bad at all. So if you want any, I put links to Amazon and Bob down below, so you've got a bit of choice. They do exist in another format, which is wider, specifically paperbacks again, but wider format, so you can fit sort of digests or particularly thick books in. Right, that's okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bag them and then I'm going to tape them all. The digest ones are equally handy, as you can imagine. The trick is with this is to try and get them in as flat as possible with no sort of bent over covers or anything like that. But these are just going to be so much easier to handle and less likely to sort of get damaged once these are in bags. So we've been through them all. We know exactly what we've got here, and they've been repaired as good as I can repair them, at least. And I'm no professional, but I've cleaned and repaired a lot of books in my time. And you know, sometimes you just have to accept that you're just not going to get things in perfect condition. They just don't exist, you know. And you can sometimes overdo it, can't you? You know, so these are rare books, but I don't think we've done anything to damage them in any way. All we've done is take off more contemporary bookshop stickers and stamps. We haven't taken anything which was wartime related, because that would detract from them. The more sort of stamps and things like that, the more, for me, the more interesting the book is, you know. I'd love them to have stamps on. That's why I find prisoner of war ones even more fascinating, because they can often have, you can pinpoint where in Europe the book was, you know, which potential prisoner of war camp it was held in. Just incredible. And often, well, not often, but sometimes you even get to see the people who read it in the camp, from the camp library. So that one was the really, really poor condition one. But now that we've got it in a bag, at least I feel it's going to be sort of a bit better protected than what it was. Okay, so I'll make sure that's fully flat. Yeah, that's fine. That little odd hardback. I've got a few in my collection which are like this, and I will always keep them because they're like unique in a way. They're just like one-offs. I may never find that book in its normal edition ever. You know, so I want to keep it as is for now. These are going in quite nicely, aren't they? I'll seal them up with some sellotape in a minute. Yeah, last one. There we are. Right, so what I do, I just use a little roll of magic tape, and because these aren't the digest size ones, I just do it in 2 spots, like so. Little blow the air out, and that's how they are. That's how I do them. So I shall, since there's only a dozen, I'll keep the cameras rolling, as it were. Yeah, the BCW bags, obviously these are specifically made for A format paperbacks, but you can fit all sorts of things in them, you know. I've got like little catalogues and things like that go in them. With regards to the actual age of these, the old sort of style bags didn't used to have that great a life. Every sort of 5 or 6 years you'd have to go through and rebag your books or your comics. Not the case with these. They do seem to be much more robust, and they last a lot longer. So that one wasn't quite pushed to the bottom, that one. Same with this one, actually. It's weird, isn't it? But that's why I do it with magic tape, so you can easily get in and out of these. I do want to push them so that they're nice and flush. Now this book isn't even cut straight, so that's as good as we're going to get it. But you know, as I've been bagging up more and more of my paperbacks, I've tried to concentrate on the really vintage stuff, although I have gone as late as the 1970s on a few bits. But generally, the older the books, the more I think they need to be protected in these sorts of bags, just in case, you know. So most of my rare penguins have been done now. I've got loads of main series still to do. I'm still only done the first couple of hundred of those, but the real rarities are bagged up because they're just so delicate, you know. I don't want to damage them even accidentally. There we are. I want it nice and tight along the top so it'll lie flat. And then we'll have one last look through these, and well, I think you can see how very, very scarce they are. You know what you should be looking for now if you get a chance. If you ever come across these books, definitely pick them up. There is no known complete set of the 30 anywhere. Not in the British Museum, not in private hands that we know of. So you will be doing the nation a favour. Okay then, I've got them all in, squeezed out the air. Don't they look rather lovely? That's a bit of spine action there as well. Much, much better now they've all been repaired. And let's have our one last look through these, because I think they're just superb. Very, very rare books, these. Particularly pleased to get the Dennis Wheatley. So, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed looking through these as much as I have. If you have, do please give the video a thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already. And obviously check out my other dedicated cleaning channel if you like this sort of content. And I'll be back again with some more vintage paperback action very soon. Bye.